London, 1925. A jeweler lies dead in his locked shop, a bullet through his heart. The priceless crimson gem vanished. Hercule Poirot steps into a web of secrets. A desperate widow, a nervous partner, a cunning thief, all with motives, none with alibis. A blue silk thread, a smudge of red wax, a whiff of lavender, clues that unravel a perfect crime. Can Poirot's little gray cells solve the locked room mystery before the gem is lost forever? The truth hides in plain sight, and time is running out. Chapter 1. The Locked Shop. The morning mist clung to the cobbled streets of Hatton Garden, London's glittering enclave of gems and secrets, as Hercule Poirot navigated the narrow thoroughfare with his characteristic precision. His ebony cane tapped a rhythm against the pavement, a counterpoint to the bustling hum of jewel merchants and their wealthy patrons. Beside him, Captain Hastings, ever the loyal companion, adjusted his scarf against the chill. "Fine morning for a stroll, eh, Poirot?" he remarked, his breath visible in the crisp air. "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his small, neat mustache twitching slightly. "But it is the unexpected that makes a morning truly fine." His gray eyes, sharp as cut diamonds, scanned the shop fronts, each a fortress of glass and iron guarding treasures within. It was then that a scream, high and jagged, sliced through the fog, halting Poirot mid-step. The sound emanated from Duval's Jewel Emporium, a modest establishment known for its exquisite craftsmanship. A small crowd had already gathered, their murmurs rising like steam. A young woman, her face pale as alabaster, stood at the shop's entrance, her gloved hands pressed to her mouth. "He's dead," she gasped to a constable who had just arrived, his truncheon swinging as he pushed through the onlookers. Poirot, with Hastings trailing, approached the scene with the quiet authority of a man accustomed to unraveling life's tangles. The constable, a burly fellow with a red face, was wrestling with the shop's heavy oak door, its brass lock gleaming defiantly. "Lock tight," he grunted, then with a nod from a bystander produced a key from the shop's manager, who had been summoned from a nearby office. The door yielded with a groan, revealing a scene that stilled the crowd's chatter. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of polished wood and metal, undercut by a faint metallic tang. Monsieur Henri Duval, the shop's master jeweler, lay sprawled across the Persian rug, his once impeccable suit stained crimson at the chest. A single bullet had pierced his heart, its precision chilling. His eyes, wide and unseeing, stared at the ceiling where a chandelier cast prismatic light across the room. On a workbench nearby, a velvet case stood open, its silken interior empty. The crimson gem, a ruby of legendary fire said to rival the Star of India, was gone. Poirot's gaze swept the room with methodical care. The shop's windows, framed in iron bars, were bolted shut, their locks untouched. The back door leading to a small alley was similarly secured, its key dangling from a hook by the wall. A single bullet casing, glinting dully, lay near Duval's outstretched hand. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers hovering over the casing without touching it. "Hastings," he said softly, "observe the order of this disorder. A man is dead, a gem is missing, yet the shop is sealed as tightly as a vault. This is no ordinary crime." Hastings, peering over Poirot's shoulder, frowned. "Looks like a robbery gone wrong, but how'd the thief get in and out? The place is a fortress." His honest face creased with puzzlement, reflecting the confusion of the growing crowd outside. Poirot rose, his movements deliberate. A fortress, oui, but even fortresses have their secrets. He turned to the workbench where tools lay scattered, a loop, a pair of fine tweezers, a cloth smudged with polish. His eyes narrowed at a faint mark on the desk's edge, a smear of red wax, irregular and glossy, as if a seal had been pressed and removed in haste. "Most curious," he murmured, then turned to the constable. "Who discovered the body, s'il vous plaît?" The constable gestured to the young woman, now wrapped in a shawl and trembling. "Miss Emily Carter, sir. Shop assistant. Came in at 9 to open up and found him like this." Poirot approached Miss Carter, his demeanor gentle yet probing. "Mademoiselle, tell me precisely what you saw." Her voice quavered. I unlocked the door with my key, and there he was, Monsieur Duval, just lying there. The gem case was open, empty. I didn't touch anything, I swear." Her eyes darted to the empty case, then away, as if its absence accused her. Poirot nodded, his mind already weaving threads of possibility. "And the shop? It was locked when you arrived?" She nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. I had to use my key. No one else was here." At that moment, Inspector Japp's familiar figure pushed through the crowd, his coat flapping. "Poirot, you old fox, what are you doing here?" he called, then took in the scene, his expression darkening. "Blimey, Duval's done for. And that gem of his, worth a king's ransom, they say. This'll be a devil of a case." Poirot's lips curved faintly. "A devil, perhaps, but one that Hercule Poirot will tame. The locked shop, the missing gem, the single shot. They speak, Inspector, if one listens. Let us begin." Chapter 2. The Three Suspects. The morning sun had burned away the mist in Hatton Garden, but the chill of death lingered within Duval's jewel emporium. Hercule Poirot stood just inside the shop's threshold, his gloved hands clasped behind his back, his gray eyes absorbing every detail of the grim tableau. The body of Henri Duval had been covered with a sheet, but the empty velvet case on the workbench seemed to pulse with its own accusation. The crimson gem, a ruby, of such fabled brilliance that it drew whispers from London to Calcutta, was gone, and with it the key to the locked room mystery that now consumed Poirot's orderly mind. Inspector Japp, his face etched with the weariness of a man too accustomed to murder, mopped his brow with a handkerchief. "Poirot, this one's a proper tangle," he said, his voice low to avoid the ears of the constable securing the scene. "Duval shot through the heart, shop locked tighter than a bank vault, and that blasted gem vanished. We've rounded up 3 suspects, and each one's got a story stickier than treacle." Poirot tilted his head, his mustache giving a faint quiver of interest. 3, you say, Inspector? Bon. Present them to me, and let us see what tales they weave." Japp gestured toward the back of the shop, where a small office served as a makeshift interrogation room. "First, there's Madame Clara Wentworth, a high society widow who was having the crimson gem set into a necklace. She was here yesterday, last to see Duval alive, she claims. Then there's Victor Lang, Duval's business partner, nervy sort, always fidgeting. Says he was home all evening, but I've my doubts. And finally, Tommy Slippery Drake, a thief with a record longer than my arm. He was spotted skulking about Hatton Garden yesterday afternoon. Each one's got motive, Poirot, but the how of it, getting in and out of a locked shop, that's the devil." Poirot's eyes gleamed with the thrill of the challenge. "The devil, mon ami, is in the details. Let us meet these suspects and observe the threads of truth they cannot help but reveal. Hastings, standing by the door, adjusted his hat and murmured, "Sounds like a rum lot, Poirot. A widow, a partner, and a thief. Hardly the usual crowd for a jeweler's shop." Poirot smiled faintly. "Yet, Hastings, it is precisely in such a crowd that the truth hides, like a gem in a coal heap. Come, let us proceed." The office at the back of Duval's Jewel Emporium was cramped, its walls lined with ledgers and sketches of gem settings. A single gas lamp cast a flickering glow, lending an air of intimacy to the proceedings. Madame Clara Wentworth sat primly on a wooden chair, her black mourning dress a stark contrast to the pale elegance of her features. Her hands, gloved in silk, rested in her lap, but Poirot noted a slight tremor as she adjusted her veil. She was perhaps 40, with the poised beauty of one accustomed to admiration, yet her dark eyes held a flicker of unease. "Madame Wentworth," Japp began, his tone official but not unkind, "this is Monsieur Hercule Poirot, a detective of some repute. He's assisting us. Perhaps you'd repeat what you told me about your visit to the shop yesterday." Madame Wentworth inclined her head, her voice low and measured. "Of course, Inspector. I visited Monsieur Duval at 5 o'clock to discuss the setting of the crimson gem. It was to be the centerpiece of a necklace for a charity gala next month. He showed me the ruby, such a magnificent stone like a drop of fire. We spoke for perhaps half an hour and I left at 6. He was very much alive when I departed." Poirot stepped forward, his movements precise as a cat's. "Madame, permit me a question. This gem, it was in its case when you left, and the shop, it was secure?" Her gaze met his, steady but guarded. "Yes, Monsieur Poirot. The gem was in its velvet case on the workbench, and Monsieur Duval locked the door behind me as I left. He was most particular about security." Poirot nodded, his fingers brushing the brim of his hat. "And you saw no one else? No one lingering, perhaps, outside the shop?" She hesitated, her gloved fingers tightening briefly. I recall seeing Monsieur Lang, his partner, leaving as I arrived. He seemed in a hurry, but we exchanged no words," Japp scribbled in his notebook. "Right, that's useful. Anything else, madam?" She shook her head, but Poirot's sharp eyes caught the faint flush on her cheeks. "Merci, madame," he said softly. "For now, that is all." As she rose to leave, Poirot noted the rustle of her dress, a fine silk, dyed a deep indigo beneath her black mourning shawl. A detail, perhaps, but one that lodged in his mind like a splinter. Next came Victor Lang, ushered in by a constable. Lang was a thin man in his late 30s, with a sallow complexion and eyes that darted like a trapped animal's. His suit, though well cut, was slightly rumpled, and his fingers bore faint ink stains, as if he spent more time with ledgers than gems. He sat heavily, his hands twisting in his lap. "Mr. Lang," Japp said, leaning forward, "you're Duval's business partner. Been with him, what, 10 years? Tell us where you were last night." Lang's voice was high, nervous. "I was home, Inspector, at my flat in Bloomsbury. Left the shop around 5 after a discussion with Henri about our finances. My housekeeper, Mrs. Gibbs, can confirm I was in by 7 and didn't leave." Poirot tilted his head, studying Lang's twitching fingers. "This discussion, Monsieur Lang, it was amicable, oui?" Lang swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Well, not entirely. Henri was stubborn about certain matters. The crimson gem, for instance. He wanted to hold on to it, but I thought we should sell. It's worth a fortune, you see, and the shop's been struggling. Poirot's mustache twitched. A fortune indeed, and this disagreement, it was heated? Not heated exactly, Lang said quickly, just firm. But I left him alive, I swear it. I didn't return to the shop. Poirot's gaze lingered on Lang's hands, noting a faint red mark on his cuff, barely visible. Wax, perhaps? He made no comment, merely nodding. Your housekeeper, she is reliable. Oh, yes, Lang said too eagerly. Mrs. Gibbs has been with me for years. Jap grunted, unconvinced. We'll check that. Anything else you can tell us about Duval or the gem? Lang shook his head, his eyes sliding away. No, Inspector. Henri was a good man. I can't imagine who'd do this. As Lang was led out, Poirot murmured to Hastings, a man who protests his innocence so loudly, mon ami, often has something to hide. That mark on his cuff, it interests me greatly. The final suspect, Tommy Slippery Drake, was brought in under guard, his wrists cuffed. He was a wiry man in his early 30s with a sharp face and eyes that gleamed with cunning. His clothes were cheap but clean, and he carried himself with the swagger of one who thrived in the shadows. He grinned as he sat, revealing a chipped front tooth. Well, well, Drake said, his voice laced with mockery. The great Hercule Poirot, is it? Come to catch old Slippery, have you? Jap's face reddened. None of your cheek, Drake. You were seen near the shop yesterday just before dusk. Care to explain? Drake leaned back, unperturbed. I was in Hatton Garden, sure. It's my patch, ain't it? Jewel shops aplenty, ripe for the picking, but I never went inside Duval's. Locked up tight by 8 it was, and I was at the Black Bull pub by then. Ask the landlord, Joe Harper, he'll vouch for me. Poirot's eyes narrowed, studying Drake's casual defiance. You are familiar with the Crimson Gem, Monsieur Drake? Drake's grin widened. Who ain't? Word's out it's worth more than a duke's estate. But it's too hot even for me. Can't fence a stone like that without every copper in London sniffing about. And yet, Poirot said softly, you were near the shop. Perhaps you saw something? A man entering, a shadow moving? Drake's grin faltered just for a moment. Didn't see nothing worth telling? Just folk coming and going, same as always. Poirot leaned forward, his voice velvet over steel. You are a clever man, Monsieur Drake, but clever men see more than they admit. We shall speak again. As Drake was escorted out, Jap sighed. Slippery as ever, that one. His alibi'll probably hold, but I don't trust him farther than I can throw him. Poirot tapped his cane against the floor. Trust is not the issue, Inspector. It is the pattern. Each suspect tells a story, but their stories intersect in ways they do not yet see. Madame Wentworth, she speaks of Lang. Lang speaks of Duval's stubbornness. Drake, he watches from the shadows, and the gem, it binds them all. The office fell silent as Jap and Poirot stepped back into the shop. The constables had finished their initial sweep, and the crowd outside had thinned, though curious faces still pressed against the windows. Hastings, hovering near the workbench, pointed to the empty velvet case. Poirot, this gem, do you think it's still in London? A thief like Drake could have it halfway to Paris by now. Poirot shook his head. No, Hastings. The gem is closer than you think. The locked shop, the single shot, the absence of forced entry. These suggest a crime of precision, not haste. The thief did not flee in panic. They planned. Jap frowned, scratching his chin. Planned, eh? But how'd they get out? The key was in Duval's pocket, and Miss Carter had the only other one. No windows broken, no locks forced. Poirot's eyes gleamed with sudden intensity. Exactement, Inspector, that is the heart of it. The door was locked, the key inside, yet the gem is gone. It is not a question of how they left, but whether they left at all. Hastings blinked. You mean the killer's still here? Poirot smiled enigmatically. Not in body, perhaps, but in traces, oui. Let us examine the shop once more. The little gray cells, they demand evidence. They moved to the workbench where Poirot's gaze fell again on the red wax smudge. He bent closer, his magnifying glass catching the light. This wax, it is not from a candle. It is sealing wax used for letters or parcels. Someone sealed something here, perhaps in haste. He straightened, his mind racing. And there, regardez, Hastings. He pointed to a tiny thread, almost invisible, caught in the rug near the body. It was blue, fine as a spider's silk. Japp peered at it. What's that, then? A bit of cloth. Perhaps, Poirot said, slipping the thread into a small envelope. But it is a clue, Inspector. A thread, a smudge, a locked door. These are the pieces of our puzzle. And somewhere among our three suspects lies the hand that placed them. As they left the shop, the gas lamps of Hatton Garden were flickering to life, casting long shadows across the street. Poirot paused, his cane tapping once decisively. This case, mes amis, it is not about the gem alone. It is about greed, betrayal, and the human heart. We shall find the truth, but first we must listen to what the shadows whisper. Hastings shivered, pulling his coat tighter. I say, Poirot, you make it sound almost poetic. But it's murder, plain and simple. Poirot's smile was faint, almost wistful. Plain, perhaps, but never simple. Come, let us retire and reflect. The game, it has begun, Chapter 3. The scene of the crime. The air within Duval's jewel emporium hung heavy with the scent of tragedy, a blend of polished mahogany, faint metallic blood, and the lingering ghost of lavender. Perhaps from a perfume or a hidden clue. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the shop, his small, immaculate figure a stark contrast to the disorder left by death. The morning's chaos had subsided, the crowd outside had dwindled, and the constables had cordoned off the entrance, leaving only Poirot, Captain Hastings, and Inspector Japp to probe the silent scene. The sheet covering Henri Duval's body seemed to mute the room's vibrancy, but the empty velvet case on the workbench screamed its own accusation. The crimson gem was gone. Poirot's gray eyes, sharp as a hawk's, moved methodically across the room. His cane rested lightly in his hand, its tip hovering above the Persian rug as if reluctant to disturb the evidence beneath. Hastings, mon ami, he said, his voice soft yet commanding. Observe the precision of this crime. A single shot, a missing gem, a shop sealed like a tomb. It is not the act of a brute, but of a mind that plans. Hastings, standing near the workbench, rubbed his chin. It's dashed peculiar, Poirot. The place is locked up tight. No broken windows, no jimmied locks. How'd the killer get in and out? And where's that blasted ruby? Japp, pacing near the door, snorted. That's the question, isn't it? I've seen locked room cases before, but this one's a corker. The key was in Duval's pocket, and the assistant, Miss Carter, swears she used her own to open the shop this morning. No one else had access. Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind at work. Access, Inspector, is not always a matter of keys. Let us examine the scene with care. The truth, it hides in the details. He began his inspection at the door, a heavy oak affair with a brass lock that gleamed under the gaslight. The key, retrieved from Duval's pocket, lay on a nearby table, its surface unmarred. Poirot tested the lock, turning the key with a delicate hand. It clicked smoothly, the mechanism pristine. "No signs of tampering," he murmured. The door was locked from the inside as Miss Carter found it. Most interesting, he moved to the windows, their iron bars casting striped shadows across the floor. Each was bolted shut, the latches rusted but intact. Poirot pressed a gloved finger against one bolt, testing its resistance. "These have not been touched in years," he said. "No thief entered here." Japp followed, his notebook open. "There's a back door to the alley, but it's the same story. Locked, bolted, key on a hook inside. Whoever did this didn't force their way in." Poirot nodded, his gaze drifting to the body. The sheet concealed Duval's features, but the pool of blood beneath had seeped into the rug, its edges already drying. A single bullet casing, small and brass, lay a few feet away, catching the light. Poirot knelt, his magnifying glass poised, and studied it without touching. "A small caliber pistol," he said. "Precise, intimate." The killer stood close, perhaps face to face with Monsieur Duval. Hastings shuddered. Ghastly thought, that. To look a man in the eye and pull the trigger. Poirot rose, his movements fluid. Ghastly, oui, but revealing. The shot was not random. It was personal. He stepped to the workbench, where the empty velvet case sat, its hinges unforced, its lock intact. The crimson silk lining seemed to mock the gem's absence. Poirot's fingers hovered over the case, then paused at a faint smudge on the desk's edge. A smear of red wax, irregular and glossy, as if a seal had been pressed and removed in haste. "Regardez, Hastings," Poirot said, pointing. "This wax, it is not from a candle. It is sealing wax used for letters or parcels." Someone was careless. Perhaps in their haste, Japp leaned in, squinting. Sealing wax? Could be from a letter Duval was writing. Or maybe the killer left it. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Exactement. But what was sealed, and why here at the scene of death? This is no accident. He turned his attention to the rug, his gaze catching a tiny anomaly, a thread, fine and blue, caught in the weave near the body. He plucked it with tweezers, holding it to the light. "Silk," he said softly. "Blue silk." A clue, perhaps, from a garment or an accessory. Hastings peered over his shoulder. Could be from the killer's clothing. Or maybe Duval's assistant dropped it. Poirot slipped the thread into a small envelope, his expression unreadable. "Miss Carter wears gray, mon ami. This thread, it belongs to another. We shall see to whom he moved to the desk, its surface cluttered with jeweler's tools, a loop, tweezers, a polishing cloth." Beneath a ledger he found a faint scratch, barely visible, as if something heavy had been dragged across the wood. He ran a finger along it, his brow furrowing. Japp, watching, grew impatient. "Anything else, Poirot?" "We've got the bullet casing, the wax, and now a bit of thread. But how do they fit?" Poirot straightened, his cane tapping the floor once decisively. "They fit, Inspector, because they tell a story. The locked door, the single shot, the wax, the thread, these are not random. They are the brush strokes of a careful artist, one who planned this crime with precision." He moved to a small cabinet in the corner, its door slightly ajar. Inside were gem sketches, invoices, and a vial of lavender oil, its stopper loose. Poirot inhaled delicately, his eyes narrowing. "Lavender," he murmured. a scent that lingers like a memory. Was it Duval's or another's? Hastings frowned. Lavender? Could be a woman's perfume. That Madame Wentworth, perhaps? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Perhaps, Hastings. Or perhaps it is a distraction. We must not assume he turned to Jap. Inspector, have your men searched for a weapon? A small pistol, perhaps hidden? Jap nodded. We've looked, but nothing yet. The killer must have taken it with them. Or hidden it, Poirot said, his gaze sweeping the room once more. He paused at a waste bin near the desk, its contents unremarkable. Scraps of paper, a broken pencil. But beneath a crumpled invoice he spotted a tiny shard of glass, no larger than a thumbnail, its edge curved. He lifted it with tweezers, examining it under his magnifying glass. Verre, he said softly. Glass, but not from a window, perhaps a vial or a lens. Jap scratched his head. A lens? Like from spectacles? Poirot's eyes twinkled. Or something else. We shall see. He pocketed the shard, his mind racing. The shop, with its locked doors and barred windows, was a puzzle box, and each clue, the wax, the thread, the glass, was a piece waiting to be placed. As they stepped outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across Hatton Garden. The street was quieter now, the jewel merchants resuming their trade, though whispers of the murder rippled through the crowd. Poirot paused, his cane resting lightly on the pavement. This crime, mes amis, is not merely about a gem. It is about trust betrayed, a plan concealed. The killer did not flee in panic. They left behind a stage carefully set. Jap sighed, tucking away his notebook. You're saying it's one of the three, Wentworth, Lang, or Drake? Poirot's smile was faint. I say only that the truth is here, in this shop. The little gray cells, they are at work, Inspector. We shall return tomorrow when the light is clearer. Hastings, ever practical, adjusted his hat. I say, Poirot, you make it sound like a game. But it's a grim business. This Poirot's gaze softened, but his voice was firm. A game, oui, but one with high stakes. The crimson gem is more than a stone. It is the heart of this mystery. And Hercule Poirot will find it. Chapter 4. The Client's Tale. The afternoon sun filtered through the lace curtains of Madame Clara Wentworth's Mayfair townhouse, casting delicate patterns across the drawing-room's polished parquet floor. Hercule Poirot, seated on a velvet-upholstered chair, sipped tea from a porcelain cup, his posture impeccable despite the plush surroundings. Captain Hastings, less at ease in the opulent setting, perched on the edge of a settee, his eyes darting between Poirot and their hostess. Madame Wentworth, the epitome of refined elegance, sat opposite them, her black mourning dress softened by a shawl of deep indigo silk. Her hands, gloved despite the warmth of the room, folded neatly in her lap, though Poirot noted a faint tremor as she reached for her own cup. Madame Wentworth, Poirot began, his voice smooth as the tea he sipped. You will forgive the intrusion, but the matter of Monsieur Duval's death demands clarity. You were, I understand, the last to see him alive, save for his killer. Let us revisit your visit to his shop yesterday. Madame Wentworth's dark eyes met his, steady but shadowed by a flicker of unease. I have told the inspector all I know, Monsieur Poirot, she said, her tone measured. I visited Monsieur Duval at 5 o'clock to discuss the setting of the crimson gem. It was to be the centerpiece of a necklace, a commission for a charity gala. We spoke for perhaps half an hour and I left at 6. He was alive, quite animated, in fact, about the gem's beauty. Poirot tilted his head, his mustache quivering slightly. Animated, you say? This interests me. Tell me, madame, what was the nature of your conversation? Was it solely about the gem, or did other matters arise? She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the teacup. It was mostly about the necklace. He showed me sketches, suggested a design with emeralds to complement the ruby's fire. He was proud of his work. But he did mention the shop's finances briefly, how valuable the gem was, how its sale could secure his future. Hastings leaned forward, his honest face creased with curiosity. Secure his future? Sounds like he was planning to sell it then. Did he say who to? Madame Wentworth's gaze flickered to the window, as if seeking escape in the sunlit street beyond. No, Captain Hastings. He was vague, only saying it would fetch a high price abroad. I didn't press him. It was not my concern. Poirot's gray eyes narrowed, catching the slight flush on her cheeks. And yet, madame, you are a woman of perception. You must have sensed something. His mood, perhaps, or a hint of tension. She set her cup down with a faint clink, her composure faltering. He seemed preoccupied, perhaps, but I attributed it to the pressures of his trade. Jewelers, you know, live in a world of risk. Risk, oui, Poirot murmured, his gaze drifting to her shawl. The indigo silk shimmered, its hue strikingly similar to the thread found near Duval's body. And during your visit, madame, you saw Monsieur Lang, his partner, leaving as you arrived. Was there anything notable in his manner? Her lips parted, then closed as if weighing her words. He was in a hurry, as I told the inspector. He nodded to me but said nothing. I thought little of it at the time. Poirot nodded, his fingers brushing the brim of his hat which rested on the table beside him. And the shop itself. When you left, it was secure? The door locked behind you? Yes, she said firmly. Monsieur Duval escorted me to the door and turned the key. I heard it click as I stepped into the street. Poirot's smile was gentle, but his eyes were sharp. Merci, madame. Your account is most clear, but permit me one more question. You are, I understand, recently widowed. The loss of a husband, it brings financial strain, does it not? Her face paled, her hands clenching in her lap. That is a personal matter, Monsieur Poirot. My husband's affairs were complex, but I manage. Of course, Poirot said, rising with a slight bow. We shall not detain you further. Your cooperation, it is most appreciated. As they stepped into the hall, Hastings whispered, She's hiding something, Poirot. Did you see how she flinched when you mentioned money? Poirot's mustache twitched. Indeed, mon ami. Madame Wentworth is a woman of secrets, and her secrets are woven into this crime. That shawl, its silk matches our thread. But is it evidence or a coincidence planted to mislead? Outside, the Mayfair streets bustled with carriages and pedestrians, the elegance of the district a stark contrast to the surrounding area, contrast to the grim events in Hatton Garden. Poirot paused on the pavement, his cane tapping thoughtfully. Hastings, consider the picture. Madame Wentworth, she is poised, yet her nerves betray her. She speaks of Duval's plans to sell the gem, yet claims no interest. A woman of her station with debts might find such a gem tempting. Hastings frowned, adjusting his hat. You think she's the thief? But how could she have done it? The shop was locked, and she's no cracksman. Poirot's eyes gleamed. No, She is not a thief in the common sense. But motive, Hastings, it is the key. Greed, desperation, or perhaps something deeper. We must learn more of her circumstances. They hailed a cab, the driver tipping his cap as they climbed in. As the horses clopped toward Scotland Yard, Poirot's mind churned. The blue silk thread, the red wax smudge, the lavender scent. They formed a constellation of clues, each pointing to a truth yet obscured. Madame Wentworth's tale was plausible, but its edges frayed under scrutiny. Her mention of Lang, her hesitation over Duval's mood, her financial strain, they were threads in a tapestry Poirot was determined to unravel. At Scotland Yard, Japp greeted them in his cluttered office, papers strewn across his desk. "Well, Poirot, what did the widow have to say? Anything to crack this case?" Poirot settled into a chair, his cane resting across his knees. "She confirms her visit, Inspector, and speaks of Duval's plan to sell the gem abroad. She saw Lang leaving as she arrived, and she insists the shop was locked when she left. But there is something she does not say. A fear, perhaps, or a secret." Japp raised an eyebrow. "You're saying she's not telling us everything?" "Exactement," Poirot said. "Her composure, it is a mask. And this—" He produced the small envelope containing the blue silk thread, holding it to the light. "This thread found near the body matches the silk of her shawl. A coincidence, perhaps, but Hercule Poirot does not believe in coincidences." Hastings leaned forward. "You think she dropped it during the murder?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Or someone wishes us to think so. We must consider all possibilities. Madame Wentworth, she is no ordinary widow. Her debts, her elegance, her presence at the shop, they weave a complex thread." Japp scribbled a note. "Right, I'll have my men look into her finances. If she's in debt, that's motive enough for theft, maybe even murder." Poirot nodded, but his expression was guarded. "Do so, Inspector, but with care. The truth, it is like a gem, cut with many facets. We must examine each one before we see its brilliance." As they left Japp's office, the gas lamps of London flickered to life, casting a golden glow over the city. Poirot paused, his gaze distant. "The crimson gem, Hastings, it is more than a stone. It is a magnet for human weakness. Greed, betrayal, desperation. Madame Wentworth, she is but one player in this drama. Tomorrow we shall seek another." Hastings grinned, despite the grimness of the case. "You're enjoying this, aren't you, Poirot? All these clues and secrets. It's like a puzzle made just for you." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "A puzzle, oui, but one that will yield to the little gray cells. Come, mon ami. The game, it continues." Chapter 5. The Partner's Secret. The gas lamps of Hatton Garden cast a muted glow as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings made their way to Victor Lang's office. Tucked above a narrow shop front 2 streets from Duval's jewel emporium. The evening air was sharp, carrying the faint tang of coal smoke, and the district's bustle had softened to a murmur of late workers and closing shutters. Poirot's cane tapped a steady rhythm on the cobblestones, his posture as erect as ever, while Hastings, bundled in his overcoat, glanced about with a mix of curiosity and unease. "Lang's a nervous sort, isn't he, Poirot?" Hastings remarked, his breath visible in the chill. "All that fidgeting yesterday makes you wonder what he's hiding." Poirot's gray eyes gleamed under the brim of his hat. "Exactement, mon ami. A man who cannot keep still, he betrays his own secrets." Monsieur Lang, he is a thread in our tapestry, and today we shall pull it to see what unravels. The office was reached by a creaking staircase, its walls papered in faded green. Inside, the room was a study in disorder. Ledgers teetered on a cluttered desk, gem sketches spilled from folders, and an inkpot sat precariously near the edge, its contents staining the wood. Victor Lang stood by a small window, his thin frame silhouetted against the dusk. His sallow face tightened as he saw Poirot and Hastings, and his ink-stained fingers twitched, clutching a pencil as if it were a lifeline. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," Lang said, his voice high and strained. "I've told the inspector everything. I don't know what more you want from me." Poirot settled into a worn chair, his movements deliberate, his cane resting across his knees. "Monsieur Lang, it is not what you have told, but what you have not told that interests Hercule Poirot. Let us begin anew. You were at the shop yesterday, oui? You left at 5 as Madame Wentworth arrived. But what was the nature of your discussion with Monsieur Duval?" Lang sat heavily, his eyes darting to the desk. "It was about the business, as I said. The shop's been struggling, debts piling up, clients delaying payments. Henri was fixated on that crimson gem, thought it would save us if we held on to it for the right buyer. I disagreed. I thought we should sell it quickly to a contact I have in Amsterdam." Poirot's mustache quivered slightly. "Amsterdam, you say? A lucrative market, no doubt. And this disagreement, it was heated?" Lang's hands twisted together, the pencil snapping in his. Grip not heated exactly. Firm, perhaps. Henry could be stubborn. He wanted to keep the gem for prestige, to draw more clients. I thought it was foolish. Too much risk for one stone. Hastings, leaning against a filing cabinet, frowned. "Risk? You mean someone might steal it, like what happened?" Lang's gaze flickered away. "I didn't mean that, Captain. I just meant the shop needed cash, not dreams." Poirot's eyes narrowed, catching a faint red mark on Lang's cuff, similar to the wax smudge in the shop. "Monsieur Lang, you are a man of details, are you not? Ledgers, invoices, seals on letters, such things are your domain. Tell me, do you use sealing wax in your correspondence?" Lang blinked, startled. "Wax? Sometimes, yes, for important documents. Why?" Poirot produced a small envelope, revealing the red wax smudge from the shop's desk, preserved on a slip of paper. "This was found near Monsieur Duval's body. It is sealing wax, oui? Perhaps from a letter you wrote or received." Lang's face drained of color, his fingers tightening on the desk. I don't know anything about that. I seal letters sometimes, but I wasn't at the shop after 5. I was home, as I told you. My housekeeper, Mrs. Gibbs, can confirm it." Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but unyielding. "Your housekeeper, she is loyal, no doubt, but loyalty, it can blind. Tell me, Monsieur Lang, what was your share in the crimson gem? Its value, it was to be divided equally with Monsieur Duval, was it not?" Lang swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Yes, but Henri controlled the sale. He insisted on handling it himself." "I trusted him, trusted," Poirot repeated, his tone laced with skepticism. "Yet you argued. A man who trusts does not argue over a fortune. Perhaps you sought to secure your share by other means?" Lang stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "That's absurd. I didn't kill Henri. I was home, I tell you." Poirot's smile was faint, almost pitying. "Calm yourself, monsieur. Hercule Poirot does not accuse, yet. But the truth, it is like a gem. It sparkles only when held to the light. We shall speak again. As they descended the staircase, Hastings whispered, "He's rattled, Poirot. That wax business hit a nerve. Do you think he's our man?" Poirot paused on the landing, his cane tapping once. "He is a man with secrets, Hastings, but whether they are the secrets of a murderer we shall see. The wax, the ink stains, his nerves, they paint a picture, but it is not yet complete." Back at Poirot's flat, the fire crackled in the grate, casting a warm glow over the pristine room. Poirot sat at his desk, the blue silk thread and wax smudge laid out before him like relics. Hastings, sprawled in an armchair, sipped a brandy. "Lang's story holds together, but it's thin, Poirot. That housekeeper of his, Mrs. Gibbs, she's the only one backing him up. And that wax on his cuff, it's too close to the smudge in the shop." Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. "The wax, it is a clue of significance. It suggests a letter sealed in haste, perhaps containing an offer for the gem. Lang, he admits to using wax, but denies being at the shop after 5. Yet Madame Wentworth saw him leave as she arrived. There is a discrepancy," mon ami. Hastings frowned. "You think he went back later?" But the shop was locked, and the key was with Duval. "Oui," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. "The locked shop, it is the heart of this mystery. Lang, he knows more than he says. His motive, greed perhaps, or fear of ruin, is clear, but the how, the method, that is what eludes us." He rose, pacing the room with measured steps. "Consider, Hastings. The crimson gem, it is not merely a stone, it is a symbol of salvation for a failing business. Lang, he sees it as his escape from debt, but Duval, he clings to it for prestige. This tension, it breeds betrayal." Hastings set down his glass. "So you think Lang planned to sell the gem behind Duval's back? And when Duval wouldn't agree, he... what? Shot him?" Poirot's gaze was distant, his mind weaving threads of possibility. "It is possible. But we must verify. The housekeeper, Mrs. Gibbs, we shall visit her tomorrow. And the wax, it must be traced. A letter, a buyer, a plan, somewhere there is a connection." As the clock struck 9, Poirot returned to his desk, his fingers brushing the envelope with the blue silk thread. "And this thread, Hastings, it links to Madame Wentworth, yet it was found near the body. Is it hers, or was it placed to mislead? The little gray cells, they are restless tonight." Hastings grinned, despite the grimness of the case. "You're like a bloodhound, Poirot, sniffing out every clue, but I'll wager Lang's our man. He's got the motive and the opportunity." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Motive, oui, but opportunity, that is the puzzle. The locked shop, the single shot, the missing gem. They form a riddle that Hercule Poirot will solve. For now we rest. Tomorrow we pursue the shadows." Chapter 6. The Thief's Alibi. The fog had returned to London, wrapping Scotland Yard in a grey shroud as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings entered the austere interview room. The air was heavy with the scent of damp wool and stale tobacco, a fitting backdrop for the interrogation of Tommy Slippery Drake, the third suspect in the murder of Henri Duval and the theft of the Crimson Gem. The room's bare walls and single flickering gas lamp lent a stark intimacy to the proceedings, and Poirot, seated at a scarred wooden table, adjusted his gloves with meticulous care, his gray eyes fixed on the door. Drake was brought in, his wrists cuffed, though his grin was as sharp as a blade. He was a wiry man, his sharp features and darting eyes betraying a life spent dodging the law. His cheap suit, though clean, hung loosely on his frame, and his chipped front tooth flashed as he smirked at Poirot and Hastings. "Well, if it ain't the famous Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice laced with mock deference. "Come to pin this on old Slippery, have you?" Inspector Japp, standing by the door, glowered. "Sit down, Drake, and keep your mouth civil. You're in enough trouble. You were seen near Duval's shop yesterday, just before dusk." "Explain yourself." Drake dropped into the chair, his cuffs clinking against the table. "I told you, Inspector, I was just passing through Hatton Garden. It's my patch, ain't it? All them sparkly shops ripe for a look. But I never went inside Duval's. Locked up tight by 8 it was. I was at the Black Bull by then, knocking back a pint. Ask Joe Harper, the landlord. He'll tell you Poirot tilted his head, his mustache quivering with interest. Monsieur Drake, you are a man of resourcefulness, oui? You know the value of the crimson gem, a stone so renowned it draws whispers from every corner of London. Yet you claim you did not attempt to steal it?" Drake's grin widened, but his eyes were wary. "That ruby's too hot even for me. Worth a fortune, sure, but you can't fence a stone like that without every copper in the city breathing down your neck. I'm no fool." Poirot's smile was faint, almost serpentine. "No fool indeed. Yet you lingered near the shop, a place you knew was guarded by locks and bars. Why, Monsieur Drake? Were you merely admiring the architecture?" Drake shifted, his bravado faltering for a fraction of a second. "Just scouting, like I said. A man's gotta know his territory. Saw a few folks about, merchants, clients, the usual. Didn't see nothing out of the ordinary." Hastings, leaning against the wall, raised an eyebrow. "Nothing out of the ordinary? A man gets shot and a priceless gem goes missing and you saw nothing?" "Come off it, Drake." Drake's eyes flicked to Hastings, then back to Poirot. "I ain't lying, Captain. I was there till maybe 7, then I legged it to the pub. Didn't see no murder, no thief slipping out with a ruby." Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but piercing. "Yet you are a man who sees, Monsieur Drake. A thief's eyes, they miss nothing. Tell me, did you see Monsieur Lang, the partner, or Madame Wentworth, the client, near the shop? Or perhaps another figure, one who moved with purpose?" Drake's grin faded, his fingers tapping the table. "You're fishing, Poirot. I saw Lang earlier around 5, leaving the shop in a huff. Didn't see the lady. But I wasn't hanging about long enough to play watchdog." Poirot's gaze sharpened, catching the slight hesitation in Drake's words. "In a huff, you say? Most interesting. And what of the shop itself? Did you try the door, perhaps, to test its strength?" Drake snorted, but his eyes slid away. "Told you it was locked by 8. I didn't touch it. I know a fortress when I see one." Poirot sat back, his fingers steepled. "A fortress, oui. Yet a fortress breached. The crimson gem is gone, Monsieur Duval is dead, and you, Monsieur Drake, were close enough to hear the whispers of this crime. If you are innocent, as you claim, then you saw something. Speak, or the shadow of suspicion grows darker." Drake leaned forward, his voice low. "All right, Poirot, I'll give you this much. I saw a bloke hanging about the alley behind the shop just before I left. Didn't get a good look. Dark coat, hat pulled low. Could have been anyone. That's all I've got." Japp pounced, his notebook out. "A man in the alley? Why didn't you mention this before?" Drake shrugged, his grin returning. didn't think it mattered. Plenty of folks use that alley. Could have been a delivery boy for all I know. Poirot's eyes gleamed with sudden intensity. A delivery boy or a killer? You are clever, Monsieur Drake, but not clever enough to hide the truth from Hercule Poirot. We shall verify your alibi with this Monsieur Harper. For now, you may go, but do not leave London. As Drake was led out, Japp shook his head. Slippery as an eel, that one. His alibi's probably solid. Harper's a decent sort, doesn't lie for thieves. But he's holding something back, I'd bet my badge on it. Poirot nodded, rising with his cane in hand. He knows more than he says, Inspector. The man in the alley. It is a detail he offers to distract, perhaps, or to point us elsewhere. We must visit this black bull and confirm his tale. Hastings followed Poirot into the foggy street, pulling his coat tighter. Drake's a rogue, but I'm not sure he's our killer. Too obvious, don't you think? A thief like him would have been in and out without a trace. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Obvious, oui, but the obvious is often a mask. Drake, he watches, he waits. He saw something, and that something may lead us to the gem, or to the one who took it. The Black Bull was a smoky pub in a narrow lane off Hatton Garden. Its windows steamed from the warmth within. The scent of ale and roasted meat greeted them as they entered, and Poirot, ever fastidious, wrinkled his nose at the sticky floor. Joe Harper, the landlord, was a broad man with a ruddy face, wiping glasses behind the bar. He nodded as Japp introduced them, his expression wary but cooperative. Aye, Tommy Drake was here last night, Harper said, setting down a glass. Came in around 8, stayed till past midnight, had a few pints, played darts, caused no trouble. He's a regular, you know. Though I don't ask about his business. Poirot's eyes scanned the pub, noting the crowded tables and the haze of pipe smoke. And you are certain of the time, Monsieur Harper? 8 o'clock precisely? Harper nodded, wiping his hands on his apron. Near enough. I remember 'cause the church bell was striking as he walked, and stayed right there at the bar most of the night. Japp scribbled in his notebook. Any chance he slipped out for a bit? An hour, maybe? Harper shook his head. Not likely. I'd have noticed. Place was busy, but I keep an eye on my regulars, especially ones like Drake. Poirot's gaze lingered on the bar, where a dartboard hung crookedly on the wall. Merci, Monsieur Harper. Your testimony is most helpful. One final question. Did Monsieur Drake seem agitated, perhaps, or preoccupied? Harper frowned, thinking. Not agitated, no. Same old Tommy, all grins and chatter. Maybe a bit twitchy, but that's his way. As they stepped back into the fog, Japp sighed. Drake's alibi holds, then. If he was here from 8 till midnight, he couldn't have shot Duval or nicked the gem. The doctor puts the time of death around 9. Poirot's cane tapped the pavement, a steady counterpoint to his thoughts. The alibi, it is convenient, oui? Yet the man in the alley, this detail, it nags at the little gray cells. Drake offers it freely, yet it is vague. Is it truth or a shadow cast to mislead? Hastings shivered, the fog curling around him. You think he's covering for someone? Or maybe he's just trying to throw us off Lang or Wentworth. Poirot's eyes gleamed in the dim light. Perhaps, mon ami. Or perhaps he plays a deeper game. The crimson gem, it draws all eyes, greed, envy, desperation. Drake, he is no stranger to such motives. Tomorrow we shall seek this man in the alley, and we shall test Monsieur Drake's tale further. As they hailed a cab, the fog thickened, swallowing the street in a gray veil. Poirot's mind, however, was clear, weaving the threads of wax silk and a thief's sly grin into a pattern only he could see. "The truth," he murmured, "it is close, Hastings. Like the gem, it hides in plain sight." Chapter 7. The Hidden Clue. The morning light struggled through the fog that clung to Hatton Garden, casting a pallor over the cobbled streets as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings returned to Duval's Jewel Emporium. The shop, now a silent monument to murder, stood cordoned off by a constable, its windows reflecting the gray sky like unpolished mirrors. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the lingering scent of blood and the faint, elusive trace of lavender that Poirot had noted the day before. The sheet covering Henri Duval's body had been removed for the coroner's examination, leaving the rug stained and the empty velvet case on the workbench a stark reminder of the missing crimson gem. Poirot stood at the center of the shop, his ebony cane poised like a conductor's baton, his gray eyes sweeping the scene with surgical precision. "Hastings, mon ami," he said, his voice a quiet murmur. "The stage is set, yet the actors have left their marks. We must find the clues they could not erase." Hastings, rubbing his hands against the morning chill, gestured toward the workbench. "We've got the wax smudge, the silk thread, and that bit of glass you found yesterday, Poirot. But it's still a puzzle how anyone got in and out of this locked shop." Inspector Japp, who had joined them, snorted as he adjusted his overcoat. "Puzzle's right. My men have combed every inch. No sign of a forced entry, no hidden passages. The key was in Duval's pocket, and Miss Carter's key opened the door this morning. It's as if the killer vanished into thin air with that ruby." Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind at work. "Vanished, non. The killer was careful, but not invisible. Let us retrace the scene, Inspector, with the eyes of Hercule Poirot." He began at the desk where the red wax smudge gleamed faintly under the gaslight. Kneeling, he examined it through his magnifying glass, noting its irregular edge. "This wax, it is not from a candle, as I have said. It is sealing wax used for a letter or parcel. Its presence here near the body suggests a purpose. Perhaps a message, a contract, a betrayal." He straightened, his gaze drifting to the tools scattered on the desk. A loop, tweezers, a polishing cloth, all untouched since the crime. Hastings peered over his shoulder. "A letter, you say? Could Duval have been sealing something when the killer struck?" "Possible, mon ami," Poirot replied, "but unlikely. The wax is smeared as if applied in haste or disturbed. It was not Duval's doing, I think." He moved to the rug where the blue silk thread had been found, now safely stored in his envelope. "This thread, it links to Madame Wentworth, yet its placement near the body is too convenient. A clue left to mislead, perhaps." Japp scratched his chin. "You're saying someone planted it to point us at the widow?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "I say only that the truth is layered, Inspector. Let us seek deeper." He approached the small cabinet in the corner, its door still slightly ajar from his previous inspection. Inside, among gem sketches and invoices, he found the vial of lavender oil, its stopper loose. He lifted it, inhaling delicately. This scent, it persists. Lavender so delicate yet so distinct. Was it Duval's, or does it belong to another? Hastings frowned. Could be a woman's perfume, as I said before. Madame Wentworth, perhaps. Or even Miss Carter. Poirot shook his head. Miss Carter. She is practical, her attire plain. This lavender, it is refined, expensive. It speaks of elegance. or deception? He set the vial down and turned his attention to the desk's edge, where a faint scratch had caught his eye yesterday. Running a gloved finger along it, he murmured, "Something heavy was moved here, perhaps a box or a case." But what? His gaze fell on a hidden drawer beneath the desk, its seam barely visible. With a gentle tug, he opened it, revealing a torn envelope, its wax seal broken but bearing the same red hue as the smudge. The envelope was empty, its contents gone, but a faint trace of lavender clung to the paper. Poirot held it to the light, his eyes narrowing. Voila! A discovery. This envelope, it held something of importance, a letter perhaps, or a document tied to the crimson gem. Jap leaned in, his notebook ready. A letter? Could be from the killer, or maybe Duval was planning to send it. Poirot's fingers traced the torn edge. Or it was taken, Inspector, to conceal a truth. The wax, the lavender, they are threads in the same weave. He slipped the envelope into another small envelope, marking it with care. We must trace this letter. Its absence is as telling as its presence. Hastings, pacing near the workbench, pointed to the empty velvet case. What about the gem itself, Poirot? No sign of it and no trace of how it was taken. Could it still be in the shop, hidden somewhere? Poirot's eyes gleamed with sudden intensity. A thought most astute, Hastings. Let us consider he examined the case, its lock unforced, its hinges intact. The crimson silk lining was pristine, but a faint indentation suggested something had rested beside the gem. Perhaps a tool or another object. He turned to the waste bin where he had found the glass shard yesterday. Sifting through the contents again, he found nothing new, but the shard, now in his pocket, nagged at his mind. This glass, he murmured, it is not from a window or a bottle. Perhaps a lens or a vial broken in haste. Jap, growing impatient, crossed his arms. Glass, wax, threads. You're building a case out of scraps, Poirot. What about the weapon? My men found no pistol and the bullets from a small caliber gun unregistered. The killer must have taken it. Poirot nodded, his cane tapping the floor. Or hidden it, Inspector. A weapon so small could be concealed in many places. He scanned the room, his gaze lingering on a heavy brass paperweight on the desk shaped like a lion's head. Lifting it, he found nothing beneath, but its weight intrigued him. This paperweight, it is heavy, yet it sits askew. As if moved recently, Hastings raised an eyebrow. You think the gun's hidden in it? That's a bit far-fetched, even for you. Poirot's smile was faint. Not inside, mon ami, but perhaps nearby. The killer, they planned this crime with care. They left clues to confuse, but also traces they could not erase. He moved to a small safe in the corner, its door locked. Inspector, has this been opened? Jap shook his head. Not yet. We're waiting for the locksmith. Duval kept his keys on him, and we haven't found the one for this. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Then it must be opened. The safe, it may hold the key to our mystery, not a literal key perhaps, but a truth. As the constable was summoned to fetch the locksmith, Poirot stepped back, his mind weaving the clues into a pattern. The wax smudge, the blue silk thread, the torn envelope, the glass shard, the lavender scent. They were fragments of a story, each pointing to a motive and a method. This crime, he said softly, is not merely theft or murder. It is a performance, staged to deceive. But Hercule Poirot, he sees through the curtain. Jap sighed, tucking away his notebook. I hope you're right, Poirot. We've got 3 suspects, and they're all slippery in their own way. Wentworth's got her debts, Lang's got his nerves, and Drake's got his alibi. But none of them explain the locked shop Poirot's cane tapped once, decisively. The locked shop, Inspector, is the lock we must pick. The clues, they are here, whispering. Tomorrow we shall pursue the lavender, the letter, and the man in the alley. For now, let us leave this stage and let the little gray cells work. Hastings, pulling his coat tighter, grinned despite the grimness. You're like a terrier with a bone, Poirot. I'll wager you've already got half the puzzle solved in that head of yours. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Half, perhaps, mon ami, but the other half, it waits in the shadows, and Hercule Poirot will find it. Chapter 8. A Revelation in Blue. The morning sun pierced the lingering fog of London, casting a pale glow over the elegant streets of Mayfair, as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings approached Madame Clara Wentworth's townhouse once more. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of wet leaves and coal fires, and Poirot's polished shoes clicked precisely on the pavement, his cane a silent partner in his measured stride. Hastings, bundled in his overcoat, glanced at his friend with a mix of admiration and impatience. Back to the widow, Poirot? You think she's the key to this locked-room business? Poirot's gray eyes gleamed beneath the brim of his hat. The key, mon ami, is not a person but a truth. Madame Wentworth. She weaves a tale of elegance, but beneath it lies a thread of fear. Today we shall tug that thread. The townhouse's door opened to reveal a maid, her expression wary but polite. She led them to the same drawing-room as before, where Madame Wentworth awaited, seated by a window overlooking a small garden. Her black mourning dress was softened by the same indigo silk shawl, its sheen catching the light like a ripple of water. She rose, her composure intact, but her eyes betraying a flicker of apprehension. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," she said, her voice steady but cool. "I had not expected a second visit so soon. Have you news of the investigation?" Poirot bowed slightly, his manner impeccable. "Madame, we come not with news but with questions. The death of Monsieur Duval and the theft of the crimson gem, they form a puzzle most intricate. You, as the last to see him alive, hold pieces we must examine." She gestured to the chairs, her gloved hands graceful but tense. "I have told you all I know, Monsieur Poirot. I visited the shop at 5, discussed the necklace, and left at 6. Monsieur Duval was alive. The gem secure, Poirot settled into a chair, his cane resting across his knees. "Oui, madame, your account is clear, but clarity, it can be a mask. Permit me to present a small detail from his pocket." He produced the envelope containing the blue silk thread found near Duval's body, holding it delicately between gloved fingers. "This thread, madame, was found in the shop, close to where Monsieur Duval fell. It is silk, fine and blue, much like the shawl you wear." Madame Wentworth's face paled, her hands tightening in her lap. "A thread? Surely, Monsieur Poirot, such a thing is common." "Many wear silk." Poirot's smile was gentle but unrelenting. "Common, perhaps, but not so common as to appear beside a murdered man. Tell me, madame, did you return to the shop after 6? Perhaps to retrieve something forgotten, or to speak further with Monsieur Duval?" Her lips parted, a faint gasp escaping. "Return? No, I assure you I did not. I went straight home. My maid Ellen can confirm I was here by 7. Her voice trembled and she reached for a handkerchief, blue silk, Poirot noted, its hue identical to the thread. Hastings, seated beside Poirot, leaned forward. "Come now, Mrs. Wentworth, that's a bit convenient, isn't it? Your shawl, your handkerchief, and now this thread? It's looking rather sticky for you." Her eyes flashed with indignation, but her voice remained controlled. "Captain Hastings, I am a woman of means, not a criminal. I had no reason to harm Monsieur Duval or steal his gem. My commission was for a necklace. Nothing more." Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was razor sharp. "Means Madame can be strained by circumstance. We have learned of your late husband's debts. Debts that linger, do they not? The crimson gem, it is a fortune in itself. A temptation, perhaps, for one in need." Her composure cracked, her hands clenching the handkerchief. "How dare you? Yes, my husband's affairs were complicated, but I have managed. I would never stoop to theft or murder." Her voice rose, then faltered, and she pressed the handkerchief to her lips, her eyes glistening. Poirot leaned forward, his voice low and probing. "Calm yourself, madame. Hercule Poirot does not accuse without cause. But you heard something, did you not, during your visit? A conversation, perhaps, that unsettled you?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. I overheard Monsieur Duval and Monsieur Lang arguing as I arrived. It was brief, but heated. They spoke of the gem, of selling it to a foreign buyer. Monsieur Lang was insistent, almost desperate, but Monsieur Duval refused. I thought it a business matter, nothing more. Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his mind racing. "Desperate, you say?" "Most revealing. And this argument, it ended before you entered?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Monsieur Lang left as I came in. I saw him hurry out." His face flushed. Monsieur Duval seemed agitated, but composed himself for our meeting. Poirot nodded, his fingers brushing the envelope with the thread. "Merci, madame. Your candor is appreciated. One final question. Do you use lavender perfume or perhaps an oil in your household?" Her brow furrowed, surprised. "Lavender? No, Monsieur Poirot. I prefer rosewater. Why do you ask?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "A detail, madame, nothing more. We shall not detain you further." As they stepped into the hall, Hastings whispered, "She's shaken, Poirot." That thread hit her hard, and that bit about Lang's argument. Sounds like he had more reason than ever to want Duval out of the way. Poirot paused by the door, his cane tapping lightly. "Oui, Hastings. The thread, it points to her, yet her denial is firm. Is it hers, or was it placed to cast suspicion? And the lavender, its presence in the shop remains a mystery, unlinked to her rosewater. The argument she overheard, it strengthens the case against Lang, but we must tread carefully." Outside, the Mayfair air was sharp, the sun now hidden behind a veil of clouds. Poirot hailed a cab, his mind weaving the new threads into the tapestry of the case. Madame Wentworth, she is a woman of pride, yet fear lurks beneath. Her debts, her presence at the shop, her knowledge of Lang's desperation, they are pieces of our puzzle. But the picture, it is not yet clear. Hastings climbed into the cab, his face thoughtful. "You don't think she's the killer, do you? She seems too refined for murder." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Refinement, mon ami, is no shield against desperation. But murder? Non, I think not. She knows more than she says, but her role is not that of the killer. We must seek the lavender's source and verify this argument she claims to have heard. As the cab rattled toward Scotland Yard, Poirot leaned back, his fingers steepled. The crimson gem, it draws all eyes, greed, fear, ambition. Madame Wentworth, she is entangled, but the knot, it tightens around another. Tomorrow we shall confront Monsieur Lang with this new thread, and we shall see what phrase Hastings grinned, despite the case's grimness. You're like a spider, Poirot, spinning a web to catch the truth. I'll bet you've got half the case solved already. Poirot's smile was faint, almost wistful. Half, perhaps, mon ami, but the other half, it hides in the shadows of motive and method. And Hercule Poirot will bring it to light. Chapter 9. The Partner's Plan. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cluttered office of Victor Lang, situated above a jeweler's shop in Hatton Garden, its narrow windows offering a glimpse of the bustling street below. Hercule Poirot, his ebony cane resting lightly in his hand, stood with an air of quiet authority, his gray eyes fixed on Lang, who sat behind his desk. A ledger opened before him. Captain Hastings, ever the loyal shadow, hovered near the door, his face a mix of curiosity and suspicion. The room was a chaos of papers and gem sketches, the air thick with the scent of ink and dust, but Poirot's presence seemed to impose a momentary order on the disorder. Monsieur Lang, Poirot began, his voice smooth yet edged with purpose. We meet again, and this time the threads of our mystery draw tighter. You have been less than forthcoming, I think, about your actions on the evening of Monsieur Duval's death. Lang's sallow face tightened, his ink-stained fingers fidgeting with a pencil. I've told you everything, Monsieur Poirot, he said, his voice high and strained. I left the shop at 5 after our discussion about the crimson gem. I was home by 7, as my housekeeper, Mrs. Gibbs, will confirm. I had no part in Henri's death. Poirot tilted his head, his mustache quivering slightly. Your housekeeper, oui, she is loyal, but loyalty, it can obscure the truth. Let us speak plainly, Monsieur Lang. Madame Wentworth, she overheard a heated argument between you and Monsieur Duval as she arrived at the shop. You were pressing him to sell the gem to a foreign buyer, were you not? A buyer in Amsterdam, perhaps? Lang's eyes widened, his hand jerking, knocking a pen to the floor. Madame Wentworth said that? She must have misunderstood. Yes, we discussed the gem's sale, but it was no secret. I wanted to secure our finances. The shop was struggling, and that ruby was our salvation. Hastings stepped forward, his tone sharp. Struggling, eh? Sounds like you had a motive to get rid of Duval if he wouldn't agree to sell. A fortune like that could tempt anyone. Lang's face flushed, his voice rising. That's preposterous. Henri was my partner, my friend. I'd never harm him, no matter our disagreements. Poirot raised a hand, his gesture calming but firm. Peace, Monsieur Lang. Hercule Poirot does not accuse without evidence, but permit me to present a detail from his pocket. He produced the envelope containing the red wax smudge from the shop's desk, holding it to the light. This wax, it matches the seal on a letter in your office, does it not? A letter, perhaps, to your buyer in Amsterdam. Lang's gaze darted to a pile of correspondence on his desk, where a stick of red sealing wax lay half hidden beneath a ledger. He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. I use wax for business letters. Yes, it's common in our trade. Contracts, invoices, they require formality, but that smudge in the shop, I know nothing of it. Poirot's smile was faint, almost predatory. Nothing, you say? Yet the wax is identical, and a torn envelope bearing the same seal was found in a hidden drawer in the shop. Empty, alas, but scented with lavender. Tell me, Monsieur Lang, do you use lavender in your correspondence? Lang's hands trembled, gripping the desk's edge. Lavender. No, I don't. Henri might have. His office was full of odd things. But I wasn't there after 5, I swear. Poirot stepped closer, his voice low and probing. You were seen leaving in haste, monsieur, by Madame Wentworth. And Tommy Drake, he places you near the shop earlier in a huff, as he put it. Your alibi, it rests on Mrs. Gibbs, a woman whose loyalty may outweigh her precision. Did you return to the shop, perhaps to persuade Monsieur Duval, or to take matters into your own hands? Lang stood, his chair scraping loudly. This is madness. I didn't return. I was home, I tell you. Henri was alive when I left, and the gem was in its case. Poirot's eyes narrowed, catching a slight bulge in Lang's coat pocket, sagging as if weighted. Your coat, monsieur. It carries something heavy, oui? May we see? Lang froze, his hand moving instinctively to his pocket, then dropping. It's nothing, just papers, a notebook. His voice wavered, and he stepped back, his eyes darting to the door. Hastings, quick to act, moved to block the exit. Let's have a look, Lang. If it's just papers, you won't mind. Jap, who had entered quietly during the exchange, nodded. Go on, Lang. Empty your pockets. Lang's shoulders slumped, and with a trembling hand he produced a small leather notebook, its edges worn. Jap took it, flipping through pages of figures and gem descriptions, but nothing incriminating. Just business notes, Jap muttered, disappointed. Poirot's gaze remained fixed on Lang. For now, monsieur, we accept this. But the weight of suspicion, it grows. The wax, the argument, your haste to sell the gem, these are not mere coincidences. As they left the office, Hastings whispered, He's hiding something, Poirot. That notebook wasn't heavy enough to make his pocket sag like that. He's got something else, I'd wager. Poirot nodded, his cane tapping the stairs as they descended. Oui, Hastings. Monsieur Lang, he is a man on the edge of a precipice. The wax links him to the shop, the argument to a motive. But the gem, where is it? I suspect it is closer than we think. At Scotland Yard, Jap joined them in his cluttered office, where the torn envelope from the shop's hidden drawer lay on his desk. We've checked with Mrs. Gibbs, Jap said, tossing his hat onto a rack. She swears Lang was home by 7, didn't leave all night. But she's old, half-blind, and devoted to him. Not the strongest alibi. Poirot examined the envelope. Its lavender scent faint but unmistakable. This envelope, Inspector, it held a letter of significance, perhaps an offer for the gem or a plan that led to murder. We must find its contents. Hastings frowned, sipping a cup of tepid tea. Could Lang have written it to his Amsterdam buyer, then taken it back after killing Duval? Possible, Poirot said, his fingers steepled. But the lavender, it troubles me. Lang denies its use, and Madame Wentworth claims rosewater. The scent, it is a clue we have yet to place. He paused, his mind racing. And the glass shard from the shop's waste bin, it is not a lens nor a bottle, perhaps a vial broken in haste, its contents spilled. Jap leaned back, his chair creaking. You're spinning a fine web, Poirot, but we need more than threads and smells. Lang's got motive, and that wax ties him to the scene. If we can place him in the shop after 5, we've got him." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. The shop inspector is a locked box, but its secrets are unlocking. Lang's desperation, it is palpable. Tomorrow we shall visit Mrs. Gibbs, and we shall press Monsieur Drake further. The man in the alley, the lavender, the letter, they will lead us to the crimson gem. As they stepped into the evening fog, Hastings grinned. "You're closing in, Poirot." "I can feel it. Lang's our man, isn't he?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the gaslight. "A man, oui, but the man, that remains to be seen. The little gray cells, they whisper of a deeper game, Hastings. And Hercule Poirot will play it to the end." Chapter 10. The Thief's Gambit. The fog of London had thickened by evening, cloaking the narrow lanes of Hatton Garden in a ghostly veil as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings ventured into a dimly lit alley behind Duval's Jewel Emporium. The air was damp, carrying the acrid bite of coal smoke and the faint clatter of distant carriages. Poirot's polished shoes hesitated on the uneven cobblestones, his cane probing the shadows with the caution of a man who knew danger lurked in such places. Hastings, his overcoat buttoned against the chill, scanned the alley with a soldier's alertness, his hand resting near his pocket as if expecting trouble. "Poirot, this is a grim spot for a meeting," Hastings muttered, his voice low. "Drake's a slippery devil. Are you sure he'll show?" Poirot's gray eyes gleamed beneath the brim of his hat. "He will come, mon ami. Tommy Drake, he is a creature of the shadows, but he cannot resist the bait of curiosity. I sent word that Hercule Poirot wishes to speak of the man in the alley. He will not stay away." They had arranged to meet Drake in this secluded spot far from the prying eyes of Scotland Yard, where the thief might speak more freely. The alley, flanked by the high brick walls of jewel shops and warehouses, was a natural haunt for a man like Drake, whose life was woven through London's underbelly. Poirot stood near a rusted gas lamp, its flickering light casting his shadow long and thin while Hastings paced, his breath visible in the cold. A soft scuffle of footsteps announced Drake's arrival. He emerged from the fog, his wiry frame hunched, his sharp eyes darting between Poirot and Hastings. His grin with its chipped tooth was as insolent as ever, but there was a wariness in his posture, like a fox sensing a trap. "Well, Poirot," he said, his voice a low drawl, "you've dragged me out here in this damp hole. What's this about the alley?" "I told you all I saw." Poirot's smile was faint, his cane resting lightly in his hand. "Monsieur Drake, you are a man of keen observation, yet your tale is thin. A man in a dark coat, a hat pulled low, this is a shadow, not a truth. You saw more, I think, and tonight you will share it with Hercule Poirot." Drake leaned against the wall, his hands in his pockets. "You're fishing again, Poirot. I gave you what I had. Some bloke in the alley, maybe 7-ish, before I hit the Black Bull. Could have been anyone. Delivery man, drunk, or just some toff taking a shortcut." Hastings stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Don't play coy, Drake. A man's dead, a gem's gone, and you were skulking about the shop. If you're not the killer, you know something. Spill it, or Jap'll have you in a cell by morning." Drake's grin faltered, his eyes narrowing. "Threats, Captain?" "That's low. All right, I'll give you a bit more, but it's all you're getting." He glanced around, ensuring the alley was empty, then lowered his voice. "I saw Victor Lang, Duval's partner, go into the shop around 9. Had a small case in his hand. Looked nervous as a cat. Didn't stay long, 10 minutes maybe. I figured he was up to something, but I didn't stick around to find out. Poirot's mustache twitched, his gaze piercing. Monsieur Lang, at 9, this is most significant. You are certain of the time? Drake nodded, his grin returning. Church bell struck 9 as I was leaving the street. Lang went in, looked shifty, came out quick. That's all I saw. Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but relentless. And this case he carried. What was it? A jeweler's case, perhaps, for the crimson gem? Drake shrugged, his eyes sly. Could have been. Small, black, leather-bound. Looked like something a toff would carry for valuables, but I didn't see inside it. Hastings frowned, his hand still near his pocket. Why didn't you tell Jap this before? You're holding back, Drake, and it's not doing you any favors. Drake's laugh was sharp, echoing in the alley. Tell Jap and get myself pinched for loitering? I'm no snitch, Captain, but I'm telling you now 'cause Poirot's got a way of making things sticky. That's all you're getting from me. Poirot's eyes gleamed with sudden intensity. Not quite, Monsieur Drake. You are a man who watches, who waits. You followed Monsieur Lang, did you not, to see where this case might lead? Drake's grin faded, his posture stiffening. Followed him? You're reaching, Poirot. I went to the pub, like I said. Joe Harper'll vouch for me. Oui, Poirot said, his voice velvet over steel. But before the pub you lingered. You saw where Monsieur Lang went. Perhaps to a place where a gem might be hidden? Drake's eyes darted to the alley's mouth as if weighing his chances of bolting. Then with a sigh, he leaned closer. All right, you win, Poirot. I trailed him a bit just to see what he was up to. He went to a pawn shop, corner of Chancery Lane. Dodgy place run by a fella named Silas Reed. Lang was in and out, still carrying that case. That's all I know. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Merci, Monsieur Drake. You have been most helpful, though you do not wish to be. We shall verify this pawn shop, and we shall speak again if your tale frays. Drake smirked, tipping his cap. Good luck, Poirot. You'll need it with that lot. He slipped into the fog, his footsteps fading quickly. Hastings turned to Poirot, his face alight with excitement. Lang at the shop at 9 with a case? That's it, Poirot. He must have shot Duval and taken the gem. Poirot's cane tapped the cobblestones, a steady counterpoint to his thoughts. Perhaps, Hastings, but the picture is not yet complete. Lang, he is nervous, desperate, but a murderer. We must see this pawn shop. If the gem is there, it is a thread that ties Lang to the crime. The pawn shop on Chancery Lane was a dingy establishment, its windows cluttered with tarnished silver, faded jewelry, and dusty clocks. Silas Reed, a stooped man with a face like crumpled parchment, eyed Poirot and Hastings warily as they entered. The bell above the door jangling. The air was thick with the musty scent of old leather and metal, and a single oil lamp cast a feeble glow. Monsieur Reed, Poirot began, his voice polite but firm. We are investigating a matter most grave, the murder of Henri Duval and the theft of the crimson gem. We have reason to believe a man, Victor Lang, visited your shop last night carrying a small leather case. Is this so? Reed's eyes narrowed, his hands fidgeting with a pawn ticket. Lang, you say? Might have been. I get a lot of folk in here, buying, selling, pawning. What's he look like? Hastings described Lang's thin frame and sallow face, but Poirot's gaze was fixed on Reed's trembling hands. A man of business, Monsieur Reed, nervous, with ink-stained fingers. He came late, perhaps after 9, with a case that may hold a valuable item. You recall him, oui? Reed hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Aye, a fella like that came in. Had a case, didn't open it. Said he needed to store something safe like, not pawn it. Paid me a bob to keep it in the back, no questions asked. Still there, far as I know. Jap, who had joined them, stepped forward. Show us, Reed. Now Reed shuffled to a back room where a small safe sat behind a curtain. He opened it, revealing a black leather case, its surface scuffed but intact. Jap took it, his hands gloved, and opened it carefully. Inside was a bundle of papers. Ledgers, nothing more. No gem. Hastings groaned. Blast it, Poirot, just papers. Another dead end. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he examined the case. Not a dead end, mon ami. The case, it is empty now, but it was not always so. Monsieur Reed, did Monsieur Lang open this case in your presence? Reed shook his head. No, sir. He handed it over, paid, and left. Didn't say what was in it. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The gem, it was here, I think, but moved. Monsieur Lang, he plays a careful game. We must search further, Inspector. As they left the pawnshop, the fog swirled thicker, swallowing the street. Poirot paused, his cane tapping once. Drake's tale, it leads us to Lang, and Lang to this pawnshop. The gem, it is close, Hastings. Tomorrow we shall confront Monsieur Lang with this case, and we shall see what he cannot hide. Hastings grinned despite the chill. You're closing in, Poirot. I can feel it. Lang's our man, isn't he? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. A man, oui, but the man. The little gray cells, they whisper of a deeper truth. The crimson gem waits, and Hercule Poirot will find it. Chapter 11. The Final Piece. The morning fog had lifted, leaving Hatton Garden bathed in a pale, wintry light as Hercule Poirot, Captain Hastings, and Inspector Jap gathered once more in the somber interior of Duval's Jewel Emporium. The shop, still sealed by police tape, seemed to hold its breath, its polished counters and empty velvet case a silent testament to the crime that had shattered its tranquility. Poirot stood near the workbench, his ebony cane poised, his gray eyes scanning the room with the intensity of a jeweler appraising a flawed gem. The air carried a faint trace of lavender, now a haunting echo of the clues they had uncovered. Jap, his notebook in hand, paced near the door. We're close, Poirot, I can feel it. That pawnshop lead from Drake. Lang's case, even if it was empty, puts him in the thick of it. But we need the gem, or at least the gun, to nail him. Hastings, adjusting his hat, nodded. Lang's been dodgy from the start, nervous, shifty, and that wax on his cuff matches the smudge here. He's our man, isn't he, Poirot? Poirot's mustache twitched, his smile enigmatic. Patience, mes amis. The truth, it is like a diamond. It must be cut with precision to reveal its brilliance. Today we shall assemble the pieces and see the whole. He had summoned the three suspects, Madame Clara Wentworth, Victor Lang, and Tommy Slippery Drake, to the shop, along with Silas Reed, the pawnshop owner, to confront them with the web of evidence. The constable ushered them in one by one, their faces a study in contrasts. Madame Wentworth's elegant composure, Lang's pallid unease, Drake's sly grin, and Reed's wary squint. They stood in a tense semicircle, the empty gem case looming like an accusation. Poirot stepped forward, his voice clear and commanding. Mesdames et messieurs, we stand in the place where Monsieur Henri Duval met his end, and where the crimson gem vanished. This crime, it is a puzzle of locked doors, hidden motives, and subtle clues. But Hercule Poirot, He sees through the shadows. Let us begin. He turned to Madame Wentworth, her indigo silk shawl catching the light. Madame, you were the last to see Monsieur Duval alive at 6 o'clock. You heard him argue with Monsieur Lang about selling the gem to a foreign buyer. You claim you left the shop locked, yet a blue silk thread matching your shawl was found near the body. Her face paled, her gloved hands clenching. I told you, Monsieur Poirot, I lost a handkerchief that day. The thread must have come from it. I did not return. Poirot nodded, his gaze shifting to Lang. Monsieur Lang, your argument with Duval was heated, oui? You pressed for the gem's sale to save your failing business. A red wax smudge matching your stationery was found here and a torn envelope scented with lavender in a hidden drawer. You were seen by Monsieur Drake entering the shop at 9 with a case. Lang's sallow face flushed, his voice rising. I wasn't here at 9. Drake's lying. I was home, as Mrs. Gibbs told you. Drake's grin widened, his chipped tooth glinting. Saw you clear as day, Lang. Black case, shifty look, in and out quick. Don't pin this on me. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the room. Monsieur Drake, you are clever, but your tale of a man in the alley, it shifts suspicion to others, yet you led us to Monsieur Reed's pawn shop, where a case was stored. Empty, alas, but once I think it held the crimson gem. Reed shuffled, his eyes darting. I told you I didn't see inside it. Lang paid to store it, that's all. Poirot's eyes gleamed with sudden intensity. Exactement. And now, we come to the heart of it. He moved to the safe in the shop's corner, which the locksmith had opened that morning. From it he produced a small cloth bundle, its edges stained with red wax. Unwrapping it, he revealed the crimson gem, its fiery brilliance catching the light, drawing gasps from the room. Jap's jaw dropped. Blimey, Poirot! You found it! Poirot's smile was triumphant yet grave. The gem, it was hidden here in the safe, where only one with intimate knowledge of the shop could place it. Let me reconstruct the crime, mes amis. He paced, his cane tapping rhythmically. Monsieur Lang, you and Duval argued fiercely over the gem's sale. You saw it as your salvation, but he refused to part with it. You planned to take it, to sell it to your Amsterdam buyer. You returned at 9, as Drake saw, with a case to carry the gem. You shot Duval a single bullet from a small pistol, now hidden, I suspect, in this very shop. You hid the gem in the safe, locked the shop with Duval's key, and left, planting the blue silk thread from Madame Wentworth's handkerchief, stolen perhaps during her visit, to cast suspicion on her. Lang staggered, his face ashen. No, that's not true. I didn't. Poirot's voice cut through, relentless. The wax smudge, it came from your letter to the buyer, sealed in haste and dropped. The lavender, it was from a vial in your office, used to scent your correspondence, broken in the struggle, leaving its trace on the envelope. The glass shard, it was from that vial. You staged the locked room to suggest an outside thief, but you, Monsieur Lang, never left the scene of your crime. Madame Wentworth gasped, her hand to her mouth. Drake's grin faded, his eyes wide. Reed shrank back, silent. Lang collapsed into a chair, his voice breaking. I didn't mean to kill him. He wouldn't listen. I just wanted the gem to save the shop. I shot him in a panic, hid the gem. I thought I could sell it later. Jap stepped forward, cuffs in hand. That's enough, Lang. You're under arrest for the murder of Henri Duval. As Lang was led away, Hastings shook his head, marveling. You did it, Poirot. The gem, the wax, the thread, you pieced it all together. Poirot's smile was modest. The little gray cells, Hastings, they see what others miss. The locked shop. It was a lie to conceal a simple truth. The killer never left until the crime was complete. Chapter 12. The order restored. The evening had settled over London, its gas lamps casting a golden glow through the fog that lingered in Hatton Garden. Inside Hercule Poirot's impeccably ordered flat, the fire crackled in the grate, its warmth a stark contrast to the chill of the case now drawing to a close. Poirot sat at his polished mahogany desk, a cup of tisane steaming beside him, his gray eyes reflecting the firelight with a quiet satisfaction. Captain Hastings, sprawled in an armchair, sipped a brandy, his face alight with admiration. Inspector Japp, still in his overcoat, stood by the window, his notebook tucked away, a rare smile softening his weathered features. "Well, Poirot," Japp said, turning from the window, "you've done it again." Victor Lang in cuffs, the crimson gem recovered, and the locked room mystery cracked wide open. "I'll admit I thought we'd be chasing shadows for weeks." Poirot's mustache twitched, his smile modest but unmistakable. "The shadows, Inspector, they are dispelled by the light of reason. The little gray cells, they have worked their magic, oui?" Hastings chuckled, raising his glass. "Magic's the word for it, Poirot. I thought we were stuck with that locked shop, doors bolted, windows barred, and not a clue how the killer got out. But you saw through it all, the wax, the thread, the lavender. How'd you know it was Lang?" Poirot leaned back, his fingers steepled, his voice measured yet vibrant with the thrill of resolution. "It was, mon ami, a matter of order and method. The crime, it was not the work of an outsider, as the locked shop suggested. None. It was intimate, planned, a betrayal from within. Let me explain." For clarity he rose, pacing slowly before the fire, his cane a silent partner in his narrative. "From the beginning, the clues told a story. The red wax smudge on the desk. It was sealing wax, not from a candle, and it matched the wax in Monsieur Lang's office. This suggested a letter, perhaps to his buyer in Amsterdam, sealed in haste and dropped during the crime. The torn envelope in the hidden drawer, scented with lavender, confirmed it. A letter of intent or a contract linked to the gem's sale." Japp nodded, his arms crossed. "That wax was a stroke of luck. Without it, we'd have nothing on Lang." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Luck, Inspector?" "No, it was carelessness. Lang, he planned carefully, but in his panic he left traces. The blue silk thread found near the body pointed to Madame Wentworth, but it was too perfect, oui? A handkerchief lost so conveniently. I suspected it was placed to mislead, taken from her during her visit. Madame Wentworth, she was innocent, though her debts made her a tempting suspect." Hastings leaned forward, his brandy forgotten. "And the lavender? That threw me, Poirot. Neither Wentworth nor Lang admitted to using it." Poirot's smile was triumphant. "The lavender, it was the key to Lang's deception. He claimed no knowledge, yet in his office I found a vial of lavender oil used to scent his correspondence, a habit he shared with few. The vial was broken, its shard in the shop's waste bin, dropped in the struggle with Duval. The scent clung to the envelope, linking it to Lang, not Madame Wentworth's rosewater." Japp scratched his chin. "And Drake? His story about seeing Lang at 9 with a case? That clinched it, didn't it?" "Oui," Poirot said, pausing by the fire. "Monsieur Drake, He is clever, but his role was that of the observer. He saw Lang enter the shop, carrying a case to hold the gem. His tale of the man in the alley, it was a half-truth to divert suspicion. But it led us to the pawn shop where Lang had stored the case, empty, to confuse us. The gem, it was hidden in the shop's safe where only Lang, with his intimate knowledge, could place it. Hastings shook his head, marveling. So Lang shot Duval, hid the gem and locked the shop to make it look like an outside job. Devilishly clever, but not clever enough for you. Poirot's gaze softened, but his voice was firm. Clever, oui, but driven by desperation. Lang saw the crimson gem as his salvation from debt, but Duval's refusal to sell forced his hand. He staged the locked room, planting the thread to implicate Madame Wentworth, but the wax, the lavender, the glass shard, they betrayed him. The little gray cells, they see what the heart conceals. Jap chuckled, pulling on his gloves. You make it sound simple, Poirot, but I'll be hanged if I could have pieced it together. I'll get Lang's confession sorted, and the gem back to its rightful owners. You've earned your fee this time. Poirot bowed slightly. The fee, Inspector, is the restoration of order. Crime, it disrupts the harmony of life. Hercule Poirot, he restores it. As Jap departed, Hastings drained his brandy, his grin wide. Another triumph, Poirot. You had me fooled with all those clues, wax, threads, lavender. I thought we'd be chasing Drake or Wentworth to the end. Poirot returned to his desk, adjusting a pen with precision. The end, mon ami, is only the beginning of understanding. Each clue was a note in a symphony, and I, the conductor, brought them to harmony. Now we rest, for the next puzzle it waits. The fire crackled, the fog outside thickening, but within Poirot's flat all was order and method. The crimson gem recovered would shine again, but for Poirot, the true brilliance lay in the truth unveiled.